What up, Commanders? I'm the roleplay gamer, and I like to party. So, oddly enough, one of my favorite things, if not my absolute favorite thing to do in Elite Dangerous, is just build ships, is just customize the ships. Now, what some of you might not know, especially the newer players, is it's not always advantageous to just load up on the best modules. You don't always need a rated gear. Absolutely, an FSD drive and thrusters and the power distributor, it's usually pretty important to have the best one you can get, assuming that, speed in the case of the thrusters and FSD range in the case of the FSD drive is something that is important to you. But for example, the power plant doesn't need to be, the best that you can get, because in most cases you'll actually be pumping too much power into the ship. Now that doesn't matter in and of itself, but what you are doing is adding more mass, and that makes the ship slower and will actually reduce your FSD range. So there are actually a lot more customization options than you may think at first glance, and using this principle, we're going to build some ships. Now, for those of you who are unaware, I'm probably most known on YouTube for my Skyrim roleplay builds, which pretty much just consisted of me taking a character archetype from film, television, or literature and trying to build that character within Skyrim to the best of my ability, considering the limitations of the game. Now, with no further gilding the lily and with no more ado, that's what we're going to try to do here in Elite Dangerous. We're going to start off with everyone's favorite little freighter turned smuggler, the Millennium Falcon. So you see a lot of people asking this question on Reddit and in the official forums and whatnot, which ship is the Millennium Falcon? And it seems that the general consensus will say the Cobra Mark III. I respectfully disagree. We gotta go hardcore on this, guys. It's not just a matter of what can the Millennium Falcon do, it's more so a matter of what it was and what has it turned into. So it was a light freighter, which means we have to start with a light freighter. So I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to guess, just for the satisfaction, if you know what I'm gonna pick here. Tick tock, tick tock. What am I using? I'm using the Keelback. Now, I was actually tempted to use the Type 6 here, and it does perform better in maneuverability and FSD range, but it absolutely lacks in firepower, and I think that is an important factor if we're going to build the Millennium Falcon. So we need to sort out, what are the defining features of the ship? Well, it's got to be maneuverable, it's got to do the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, which to me means that it has to have the best FSD range that we can put into it, and it's also going to be able to defend itself. Now, it's absolutely not a combat ship, but it's got supposedly capital class weaponry. This actually surprised me. While doing some research on the armaments of the Millennium Falcon, supposedly it does have comparable weaponry to a capital ship. So my source might not be accurate there. For those of you, those really hardcore Star Wars nerds, sound off in the comments. What are the actual, canon, forgive the pun, armaments of the Millennium Falcon? Supposedly it's also got a couple of missile launchers, which, I've seen all the movies several times. I don't think they've ever been shown in the movies, but again, correct me if I'm wrong. But that's what we're going to work with here. Now, on top of all this, we also needed a ship that could hold a decent amount of cargo. So we absolutely needed a freighter. Yes, we could have used a Cobra Mark III or IV and had a more maneuverable ship with better firepower, but it really wouldn't have been the Millennium Falcon, would it? It might have been the Falcon taking out the Death Star, but that's just one scene. We want the smuggler with a bite. So in my mind, there really is no other choice. We've got to go with a Keelback here. But please, by all means, let me know your opinions in the comments. What ship would you have chosen if not the Keelback? Now, with that all out of the way, let's actually get to the build, right? So like I said at the beginning of the video, the Millennium Falcon is fast, so we need to shed some weight on this bad boy to try and speed it up a little bit. And I'm not just talking about FSD range, I'm talking about its maneuverability and its all-out speed, including boost. So what we've had to do here is actually downgrade our power plant. Don't worry guys, this is totally okay to do as far as I'm aware, as far as all the information I've gathered in my research and just testing it out. There is absolutely no detriment at all to lowering the class of power plant as long as you have, enough power to go around, and we absolutely do. So instead of a class 4 power plant, we're using a class 3 A-rated power plant. We're going for Class 4 A-rated thrusters naturally because we want as much speed as possible. We've also got a Class 4 A-rated frameshift drive. Again, we need as much range as we can possibly squeeze out of this thing. Next up, we've got a Class 1 D-rated life support system. Now, for those of you who don't know, the D-rated gear is actually the lightest possible module you can install. So wherever possible, if you can get away with a D-rated module, that's the one you want. Next, our Power Distributor is a Class 3 A-rated Power Distributor. This is absolutely something that you could downgrade in order to get more speed and maneuverability out of the ship, but it's just such a lifesaver having that fast charging boost meter, for example, and so that your weapons last longer. So we are going to make the mass sacrifice here and put in the best Power Distributor that we can get. Next, we've got Class 2 D-rated sensors. Again, D-rated because they're the lightest. And moving on to the optional internals now, we've got two 5E cargo racks, that's 32 tons apiece, one 4E cargo rack, which is 16 ton. We've also got a 2E cargo rack, which is 4 ton. We've got a 2A fuel scoop and a 3C bi-weave shield generator. Now, my reasoning here was due to the power constraints, we can't really put the biggest, baddest shield generator that we can possibly get into this thing, so why not instead focus on shield recharge rather than raw shield power, which is what the bi-weave does. Last but certainly not least, what does the Falcon have? Two badass turrets, one at the top, one at the bottom. Now, unfortunately, the Keelback doesn't have that top-bottom configuration. If you really want to stay true to the Falcon, I suppose you could put a turret in the top medium spot and a small turret in the underneath section, but I feel like that's probably, we're stretching a little bit too far into the realm of making it so much like the Falcon that we're actually detrimenting the build as a playable, efficient build. So instead what we've got is two 2F pulse laser turrets in the top medium mounts. Now supposedly, like I said before, according to my research, the Falcon has a couple of missile launchers. I don't know, I don't personally remember the scenes with that in them, but we're going to run with that because it's cool, it gives you more firepower. So we've got two 1B Seeker missile racks in the bottom small slots. So if all of that was too fast for you and you're like, what? Don't worry, all this information is in the description of the video below. Now let's look at some of the stats here. So we're going to have 112 shield points, however you measure shields. We're going to have 84 tons of cargo space, your standard 16 tons of fuel. Our mass on empty is 226. Our full laden mass is 326, which should be below the optimal for the thrusters we have, if I'm not very much mistaken, which does make us maneuverable and fast. Our unladen jump range is 23.93 light years, while our laden is 17.76 light years. Not amazing, but it's pretty good. We could drop it even further, but like I said, we'd then lose functionality. We wouldn't be able to have weapons and stuff like that. In terms of maneuverability, and this is with the default 2 pips into engines, unladen we've got a speed of 163, 153 while laden. Our unladen boost is 338, while our laden boost is 316. Not too bad. Now, if you're really rocking the pips, and as you should be, as every good pilot should, while we're unladen, we'll have a speed of 225, while our laden speed will be 211. But that's all just numbers. Numbers mean nothing. How does it feel? It actually feels pretty darn good. It doesn't feel sluggish and like a fat-assed freighter. It feels maneuverable enough. Now, sure, it's no Eagle or whatever, it's no Vulture, but it's pretty good considering that we're dealing with a keelback here. You can make it more maneuverable. You can make it kind of a little bit of a faster combat ship, and it totally works. I've been bouncing into reses here and there and blowing some guys out of the water. Now, granted, you're probably not going to be going into hazardous reses or maybe even high reses. If you go into a high res, you want to be careful and you won't be picking your fights. But yeah, you can bounce in there and you can cause some trouble, no problem. Those turreted weapons and the missile launchers are more than enough to deal some serious damage to a lot of targets. If you want to make this a bounty hunting ship, you can, but that'd be silly, right? If we're doing this in order to have the Millennium Falcon in game, you're going to be primarily, I guess, doing smuggling missions and trading and whatnot. You could absolutely replace your cargo racks with passenger cabins and, do a little bit of ferrying Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi around. Go check out some moons. Oh shit, that's not a moon. You know how it goes. It's just a fun little kind of bit of an all-rounder freighter turned into a smuggler that has a little bit of bite, and it works, I'm very happy to say. So there you go, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you use a different build or perhaps a different ship altogether? Sound off in the comments below. Also throw in your suggestions for another ship for me to build here. I'd really like to try doing Slave 1 because that's one of my all-time favorite ships. I think it looks like really sexual. Now, of course, the best part of that ship is its looks, so we can't really get that into Elite Dangerous, but at least we can hopefully get its functionality, and I've got a couple ideas for that already. But beyond that, let me know what you think. What ships do you want to see in the future? Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to gently caress that like button. It needs love like everything does. Taste the game, be excellent to each other, and I'll see you next time. Roleplay Gamer, out.